Giannis in Oklahoma City with a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. What would y'all say to that?
Giannis 31, Chet 24. But if you're in a win-now situation, I love what you just said. Giannis is a rumor.
Most players spend their entire careers chasing greatness. Anthony Davis touched it, and somehow still left people wondering what went wrong. We're talking about a 7-foot big man who moved like a guard, protected the rim like a Hall of Famer, and once looked like the future face of the entire league. By 21 years old, he was first-team All-NBA. By 22, he was putting up numbers that only legends like Wilt and Shaq had matched. At his peak, there were nights when he genuinely looked like the best player in basketball. And yet when people talk about his career today, they don't start with dominance. They start with injuries. They start with what could have been. So the real question isn't whether Anthony Davis was great. It's this: just how good was prime Anthony Davis, actually? And to understand that, you have to go back to when he wasn't even supposed to be a big man. Anthony Davis wasn't raised in some powerhouse basketball program. He went to Perspectives Charter School in Chicago, a small math and science academy that barely had a basketball identity. The team didn't even have its own gym. They practiced at a nearby church. College scouts rarely showed up, and as a freshman, Davis wasn't dominating the paint. He was 6 feet tall. He played guard. Then everything changed. Between his sophomore and senior year, he shot up nearly 10 inches, growing to almost 610. But here's the part that made scouts lose their minds. He kept the guard skills, the footwork, the coordination, the ball handling, the instincts. Now imagine a near 7-footer with guard movement, a 7-plus-foot wingspan, and elite timing as a shot blocker. That's when the basketball world started paying attention. After playing AAU with Mean Streets and showing up at national camps, Davis went from unknown to 5-star recruit almost overnight. Within a year, he was the #1 player in the entire 2011 class. NBA scouts were already whispering about him as a future #1 pick, and he hadn't even played a college game yet. But what happened next made the hype look small.
What's up? We heard all of this noise, all of these years. Supposedly, I don't know, never asked him, but y'all don't necessarily get along. Y'all don't really like each other.
At Kentucky, Anthony Davis didn't need to score 25 a game to dominate. He controlled everything. As a freshman, he averaged 14 points, 10 rebounds, and an absurd 4.7 blocks per game while shooting over 60% from the field. He led the entire country in blocks. He set the NCAA freshman record with 186 in a single season. At one point, he was blocking more shots by himself than entire Division I teams. Kentucky went 38-2, undefeated in SEC play, loaded roster with future NBA players. But the most important player on the team was the freshman who didn't need the ball in his hands. In the national championship game, Davis scored just 6 points. 6. But he grabbed 16 rebounds, swatted 6 shots, dished 5 assists, and had 3 steals. He was named final for most outstanding player anyway. That's what made him different. He didn't need to dominate the box score to dominate the game. By the end of that season, there was no debate about the draft. Anthony Davis was the clear #1 pick, defensive prodigy, franchise changer, the kind of player teams tank for. New Orleans didn't hesitate. And for a while, it looked like they had found their savior. In 2016, Davis signed a massive 5-year extension. New Orleans was all in. That same season, he delivered one of the greatest games ever by a big man, 59 points and 20 rebounds. The youngest player in NBA history to score 59. One of only a handful since the 1980s to put up 50 and 20. He looked unstoppable. Then came the injuries. A knee issue. A torn labrum in his shoulder, something he later admitted he'd been playing through for years. Seasons kept getting interrupted. Shoulder, ankle, back spasms, hip, finger, rarely catastrophic but constant. From 2014 to 2019, Davis averaged roughly 27 points, 11 rebounds, and over 2.5 blocks per game. 4 All-NBA teams in 5 years, top 5 in MVP voting, regularly near the top in defensive metrics. On paper, that's a perennial contender, but the Pelicans made the playoffs only twice in 6 seasons. Every time the roster looked ready, something collapsed. DeMarcus Cousins tearing his Achilles, key role players missing time, the Western Conference loaded with dynasties, and the frustration started to show. After 7 seasons, 1 playoff series win, and constant resets, Davis made the biggest decision of his career. He wanted out. And what happened next changed everything. When Davis entered the league in 2012, the Hornets were coming off a 21-win season. The roster was young, inconsistent, still rebuilding after trading Chris Paul. Expectations weren't championship level yet, but Davis didn't take long. In his NBA debut against the Spurs, he dropped 21. Within weeks, he had games of 28 points, 16 rebounds, multiple steals, multiple blocks. He wasn't just playing center. He was switching onto guards, running the floor, finishing lobs, blocking jump shots. He missed games with early injuries, but the flashes were undeniable. Then came year 2. That's when promising turned into terrifying. He opened the season with 20 and 12, then 26 and 17. Then 32 points, 12 rebounds, 6 blocks against the Lakers, becoming the youngest player ever to post 30, 10, and 5 blocks in a game. By his 3rd season, he was averaging 24 points, 10 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks per game, and leading the entire NBA in player efficiency rating. At 21 years old, in 2015, with a playoff spot on the line against the defending champion Spurs, Davis dropped 31 and 13 to clinch it. In his first playoff series, he averaged 31.5 points and 11 rebounds against the 67-win Warriors. They still got swept. And that became the theme: unbelievable individual dominance, not enough team success. But that wasn't the whole story.
Along with 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for Giannis
The Lakers paid a historic price. Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, 3 first-round picks, the number 4 overall pick, one of the steepest packages ever for a single player. For the first time in his career, Anthony Davis wasn't the lone superstar. He had LeBron James. The fit was immediate. In his first season in Los Angeles, Davis averaged 26 points, over 9 rebounds, more than 2 blocks, and nearly 2 steals per game. First team All-NBA. First team All-Defense. Second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. The Lakers finished with the best record in the West, but critics still questioned him. Could he do it deep in the playoffs? Then the world shut down, and inside the Orlando bubble, we saw something different. No crowds, no travel, just pure basketball. After Portland stole Game 1 in the first round, Davis responded by averaging nearly 30 and 10 over the next 4 games. Against Houston's small ball lineup, he was too fast for centers, too strong for wings, too long for guards. Then came Denver, Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. No timeouts, clock winding down. Davis caught the ball, turned, shot over Nikola Jokic, and yelled Kobe as it went in. In that moment, he didn't look like a traditional big man. He looked like the prototype of the modern NBA superstar. In the finals against Miami, his impact went beyond scoring, switching onto guards, erasing drives, controlling the paint. When he was on the floor, the Lakers' net rating was over +25. They won in 6. Anthony Davis was a champion. He had done exactly what he left New Orleans to do, but what came after might define his legacy just as much.
Kevin Durant is one of the top 3 players in the world, and he ran away from the challenge that he faces in order to jump on the bandwagon of a team that's a little bit better, that's already rife with at least one superstar, a couple of guys that can really get it done. I just view it as him jumping on the bandwagon, and I think it's the weakest move I've ever seen by a
The offseason
superstar.
after the bubble was one of the shortest in NBA history. The wear and tear showed immediately. Calf strains, heel soreness, knee issues, a groin injury that derailed a playoff series, an MCL sprain, ankle problems. Season after season, something interrupted momentum. There were still flashes. In 2023, he had a stretch with back-to-back 40-point games. a 55-point, 17-rebound explosion on over 70% shooting. A game with 35 points, 20 rebounds, 5 steals, and 5 blocks, something almost nobody has done since the 1970s. In the playoffs, he recorded 7 blocks in a single game and powered the Lakers back to the Western Conference Finals. But it never lasted long enough to become an era. Then came another shock. In 2025, he was traded to Dallas in a blockbuster deal involving Luka Doncic. Reports say he didn't even see it coming. In his Mavericks debut, he dropped 26, 16, and 7 assists, then strained his adductor in the same game, more missed time. Later, surgery for a detached retina, protective goggles, more setbacks. By 2026, another trade, this time to Washington, still waiting to see what version of him returns. And that brings us back to the only question that really matters. How good was prime Anthony Davis? If you isolate the years from 2015 to 2020, the answer is simple. He wasn't just an all-star. He was one of the best players on the planet. Nearly 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game across multiple seasons. Elite efficiency, defensive anchor, switchable onto guards, capable of closing games offensively. He could dominate without the ball. He could dominate with it. He could score at every level and still anchor an entire defense. That combination is rare. There are only a handful of big men in modern history who could do all of that at once. The reason his legacy feels complicated isn't because he wasn't dominant. It's because we never got that version of him for long enough. Anthony Davis wasn't just a star. At his peak, he was a two-way force comparable to the greatest big men of his era. But basketball history doesn't just remember how high you rise. It remembers how long you stay there. And that's what makes his career one of the most fascinating what-ifs we've ever seen. Because on the right night, even now, Anthony Davis can still look like the most unstoppable player on the floor. The only question left is whether we've truly seen the last version of that prime, or if there's one more chapter waiting.